Welcome back to Tammy Addy Academy. My name is Tope, the founder of Tammy Addy. I'm a fashion designer and your fashion teacher. In today's video, we're going to be talking about grain lines. I'm going to define what a grain line is and tell you the different types of grain lines we have. So what is a grain line? The grain line is the direction in which you cut your fabric on. When fashion designers and pattern makers talk about grain lines, they are referring to the direction the pattern pieces are placed on the fabric. And the different types of grain lines are the weft, also known as the lengthwise grain line, the bias, and the weft, also known as the crosswise grain line. So what is the weft? The weft is parallel to the selvage. Parallel to the selvage. The selvage is the finished edge of your fabric. So you would identify where the selvage is, then look at your pattern piece. What is your pattern piece telling you? What direction is your pattern piece telling you to cut on? So this is an example of a pattern piece. This is telling us that we need to cut on the weft, right? This direction is showing that you need to place your pattern piece on your fabric and cut on the weft. So this is a weft grain line. So you place your pattern piece on the weft parallel to the selvage, 90% of the time, we cut our fabric on the weft. We cut it on the weft. This is to ensure that your final garment hangs properly or falls properly. So most times we cut our garment on the weft. Okay. And the next type of grain line is your bias grain line. Your bias grain line. And this runs at a 45-degree angle, like this. So it can either be this direction or be this direction, but it's 45 degrees. And most times we cut this if you want to make like a bias dress or a bias skirt, or you want to cut your bias tape. The reason why you cut on a 45-degree angle is because of the stretch. It has a lot of stretch compared to if you want to cut a bias dress on the weft or on the weft. There's no stretch. So most times if the final look you're looking for or you want for your garment is good drape, if you want your final garment to drape well, then you need to cut on the 45-degree angle. You need that stretch, right? So that's when you cut on your bias grain line. The next type of grain line is the weft. This runs perpendicular to the selvage, so it runs left to right. It's also known as a crosswise grain line. It runs left to right. That's why they named it weft, right? So it runs left to right. So you know, when they are making a fabric or a material, when they are weaving it, they have fibers running this direction and fibers running this direction, and then they weave it. So is the fibers running this direction that is called the weft, and the fibers running this direction that is called the weft. Okay, so what do we cut on the weft? We don't really cut garments on the weft except for, I guess, special types of fabrics or special situations. For example, for the cotton fabric, African print fabric, right? I noticed that most people cut both on the weft and on the weft, and the final garment ends up hanging well. It doesn't only hang well, it ends up lasting for a while. So I noticed that for the African print fabric, you're able to get away with cutting on the weft. But like I said, 90% of the time we cut on the weft. Then when you want to make a bias dress or a bias skirt, or you're looking for bias binding, you have to cut on a 45-degree angle. And this is what, when you want on the pattern piece, this is how it will look like when you indicate it on your pattern piece. So this indicates that, oh, we need to cut this fabric on the bias. This one also says, oh, we need to cut on bias as well. So just reading your pattern piece, looking at what grain line is indicated on your pattern piece, then you're able to know what direction to cut your fabric in. Okay, so those are all the things I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you learned something new. If you have any questions or comments, you can drop them in the description box below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my other videos. Happy sewing.